Welcome to another edition of In-Depth School and Community. As you know, we've been featuring a show pretty much every other day, focusing in on issues that are confronting our schools during this pandemic that has swept across the country. And obviously, it's been a major factor for us here in the Concord schools. I'm really pleased to have with us today those two very distinguished guests. First, let me introduce the Commissioner of Education, Mr. Frank Edelblut.
Happy to be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Vice President of our school board and also a Senior Administrator for the state of New Hampshire, Mr. Jim Richards.
Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. Both our guests are here to talk on a more 30,000-foot view, if you will, of kind of where things are at and what we might be looking forward to as we go down the road. But I want to start with the Commissioner first, and before I ask a question, I want to make a statement. I can't tell you how pleased we are, Commissioner. I know Jim supports me in this. What you and your team have done on behalf of public schools in the state of New Hampshire, it has just been nothing short of remarkable.
Well, I would really like to reciprocate that as well, because it has been really encouraging. Our teachers, our education leaders have really stepped into the gap here and are just doing an incredible job for all of our students all across the state. I am so encouraged. And I think we were talking a little bit when I first came in.
Yes.
And we were just, it's really, there's a good vibe, if I can use that word, right? Everybody is collaborating and working together. You know we maybe are not getting everything perfect, but we're all in this together and just working towards a good end.
Now, I know you're working with the governor on a regular basis about where things are at and looking at, what's the impact going to be for the rest of the school year and the state of New Hampshire in general.
Right.
And there are two major issues in front of us. What's the economic downturn that we're going to have to face? And then will schools be back in session at some point during the year? Now, I don't know if you can actually, prognosticate for us what that's going to be, but give us an inkling of what you're thinking.
Yeah, so everybody knows we have May 4th
Yes.
is our next evaluation date.
Right.
And one of the things that the governor is trying to consider very carefully really is keeping the school system in sync with the rest of the economy, quite frankly.
Right.
We want to make sure that depending on where we are in this cycle, that we don't somehow extend the schools into June.
Right.
But then we open the economy on May 15th and everybody will be wondering like, well, why are the schools not in session at this point in time? And so we're really trying to keep those in sync. And part of that needs a little bit of runway, right? We have to just watch the data and it is evolving every day in terms of numbers of cases and how that's moving. And so really the governor just wants to be able to very carefully look at all of the information, all of the good data, take all of the recommendations that come in both from the school system, but really from Health and Human Services and the business community and make a good decision. We were initially aiming for kind of an April 17th to be able to give people some runway.
Yes.
It may be a little bit beyond that. We're not really sure yet. We're going to look at the data.
Okay.
But in any case, the governor is assuring everybody that if we need to change again, we're going to give folks runway to be able to make that shift and get back to the school in the traditional model.
That sounds very promising. Now, Jim, from your point of view, on the board, how do you see things? How have things played out for you as a board member?
Well, as you know, we're in really uncharted territory. We've never had to face a situation like this, and so we've had to adapt. We are doing all of our meetings remotely, and we are still continuing with community participation. All the board members have a robust discussion on all of the items. So, and the administrators are also present and participating and providing us all the information we need. It's budget season for us, and that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of work to do in a very short amount of time. But I'm very happy to say that we have pushed through, and we're right on schedule, and things are going really well from the board point of view. Part of that is a result of the fact that things are going so well from a school point of view too. I've heard from numerous parents, and they're very pleased with how quickly we were able to turn and get on to remote learning. And while everything is not perfect, everyone is adapting, and kind of it's a dynamic situation that we're working on at the time. But everyone is contributing and participating, and we're actually seeing some really creative solutions, as I'm sure you know, that are, in many cases, even a new learning experience and a better learning experience for some of our students. So I'm very pleased.
That's great. That's really great to hear. I'll come back to the budget in a second if I could, but back to you, Commissioner. So obviously you and I have had conversations about what's happening here in Concord, and we're very pleased, and I think Jim's already reporting that, about how well we're doing here. But you also have some good news for the state of New Hampshire in general, yes?
Well, I think that it is working well here, but it's really working well across the state. Everybody, again, that vibe is there.
Yeah.
People are digging in. They're working on, solutions, just trying to problem solve and move, students forward. It's interesting. I like to say, Jim, as you were describing it, in this circumstance, everyone is learning. Like
Yes.
you think about school, you think about the kids learning.
Right.
But here we have kids are learning, families are learning,
Right.
teachers are learning, school administrators are learning, state administrators are learning. So we're all in this together, just kind of working our way forward and working through some of the difficulties to have success. It was kind of interesting. Before the show, Jim was sharing. He's got actually a couple of kids in the system, it turns out, if I'm allowed to share that.
Oh, sure.
And he was telling me that he's learning some stuff about statistics, and then apparently you're teaching a class as well for your
Yes.
students, aren't
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Yeah. So we all have a chance to learn in this, isn't it great?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think everybody has, as you both said, jumped into this with both feet. And you've got bus drivers to superintendents to board members to commissioners all trying to shoulder some of the burden here to help us all out. And it's really, really great to hear.
Yeah.
Now, you hear from superintendents a lot, and you send out messages to us, and you have the call-in sessions about 2 or 3 times a week, which has been great. But my question is, do you hear from board members too? Like, will someone like Jim call you and say, Commissioner, here's our issue, can you help us out?
Yeah, so it's not infrequent that we hear directly from board members who have questions saying, like, here's what's going on in my school, is this okay?
Right.
Or what can we do about this?
Sure.
As well, we work very closely with the School Boards Association and get a lot of input from them. And then there's the School Governance Association, which also has members that are school boards.
Right.
I think I'm meeting with them next week. So we're trying to stay in contact with everyone. I think part of the key for New Hampshire is we are a small state, so this makes it a little bit easier, but lots of transparent communication to try and keep everyone on the same page has been really helpful for us.
Yeah, it's been huge. I couldn't agree more. Jim, back to you for a second, if I could, and talking about the budget. And again, it's an issue of transparency. It's an issue of communication to our public. But when the administration scaled back, obviously for fear of the economic downturn that was surely to come, the board, in a way, came to the rescue of the students and said, well, wait a second, let's not go too far here.
Well, we're looking at both aspects of it, and I do appreciate the fact that the administration very early on took a look down the road, looking towards the next year, and realizing that there's going to be a financial impact and a burden on, and there already is, on many families in our community. So we have, we've worked together to structure a budget that is really, pretty tight, very lean, and we're not getting. There's a lot of wants that we would like to have, and we're going to have to postpone those probably for a little while.
Yeah.
But we worked together, and the board has come back and said, let's make sure we don't miss the needs.
Right.
And this situation and the environment we're in right now has some unique needs that affect not only our special needs students, our regular students. I know that on the physical education side, the teachers are trying to get kids at home to make sure that they keep up with physical education and that way everyone stays healthy. There's a lot of unique new needs, and so we're balancing it out with the budget, and we really appreciate the input that the community has gone to great lengths to provide us, either through our remote meetings, and they can call in, they can Microsoft meeting in, or they can simply just write an email or a letter to us in the school board. So it's been a real team effort, and I think that the citizens of Concord, and indeed the state, are benefiting from all the help we have. And I also want to echo what the commissioner said, is communication and working together with both the Department of Education as well as the New Hampshire School Boards Association has really helped us out in these past couple weeks. I just want to say thank you to both of them. They've been outstanding resources and partners with us the whole time.
Important point. Jim, you mentioned the issue of special education, and Commissioner, you and I were having a conversation about that before the show started. So, talk to us about what you've encountered across the state on the special ed front.
So probably the area that we have seen the most creativity and innovation. I mean, essentially what we've seen is our special educators have looked at a student's individual education plan and they said, okay, well, here are the services and supports that we're providing this student in a traditional environment. What happens in this new world that we're in, right? And that's where, again, this creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship might be the way of describing it. And they said, well, we could do this, and we can do this, and we can do this. And they're working with the students, they're working with the families to try and come up with solutions. In New Hampshire, we've put in kind of what I refer to as a 3-tier safety net around special education.
Okay.
So kind of the first part of that safety net is, how can we provide this support to this student in a remote instruction and support model? Right? Can I do something remotely? Can I, support that student in some way like that? The second tier is, can I continue to support the student with in-person services? We've got some special educators and we've got third-party providers, who are able to support some of those students who have some of the greatest needs in our community.
Right.
And they really need these supports throughout this pandemic experience, really.
Exactly, yeah.
And then the last tier is like just acknowledging that there may be some gaps, that we just can't support that student in this disrupted environment, and acknowledging it, talking to the parents about it, saying, okay, so when we come back to our new normal here, how are we going to make sure that the student can make progress towards those goals?
Right, and you had mentioned third-party affiliates and the value that they bring to the table, because they can help us out.
Great partners, aren't they?
Yes. Their support is crucial, plus the fact we want to maintain a business relationship with them going forward. So for them to help us out during this very critical period will be good for them and good for us as we move down the road.
It really is. It's a partnership, right? You got to work with your vendors to make sure that you have the supports that you need so everybody can succeed in this disrupted time.
So, Jim, we're talking about disruptive time, and I know you're the vice president of the school board, which is a very demanding job in and of itself. But you also have another job, and you work for the state of New Hampshire. And so you were talking before the show that, you're trying to meet the needs of all the employees within your organization. And you said, I think, 63 out of 75 stores still remain open. So that's obviously an important consideration for you, because these are jobs. These are livelihoods of people. And if you were to shut them all down, then there would be an issue for them.
Well, absolutely. We're very concerned about our employees and their families, as well as, all of the various state departments. I know we're all working very hard to meet the needs, and this is a challenging time. It's a dynamic time and something we haven't faced before. But, once again, it comes back to communication, working together, being creative and adaptive, and trying to be as quick as we can to anticipate the needs and provide for them for the employees as well as the citizens of the state. And our employees are parents, and that's the biggest thing I've talked with is a lot of parents, and they are working. My family has, my wife works as well, and so we're, have that challenge, as many parents out there do. And I think quite a few parents are getting a newfound respect for teachers. I can't let this program go without thanking the outstanding job that our teachers have done. They have stepped up and they have really worked very hard, administrators as well. But teachers are being creative. To go back to what the commissioner said, this time, while very, very challenging, is sparking a creativity and entrepreneurship that, we haven't seen before. I'm going to just share that my son's calculus teacher had a model that she had a video of that he was watching of, and it's a three-dimensional slices of a circle. It was very mathematical, but very visual and very easy to understand as well. That translated really well onto a YouTube video and an instruction that they get through their Google Classroom and through the technology that we have. So there are a lot of innovative and creative things that I hope carry forward as we move on beyond this as well.
I'm familiar with that video. The math director here shared that with me.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes,
oh, wow.
exactly. And
it was great.
Yes.
I mean, it's been 30 or so years since I've done calculus. But I understood that lesson very well too. It was a great teaching moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, can you talk to us about, you said, I'm a parent too, and you got two children in the school system, so, put your parent hat on and talk to us about what the experience has been like as a parent, because I got the impression from what you were saying that you're learning as well, and you're becoming engaged in the learning of your children in a way you never did before.
Oh, not just me. I'm sure every parent is doing that as well, because the education right now is taking place in our home.
Right.
And the lessons are quite often on the student's time and the teacher's time, so it goes throughout the day.
Right.
And carries on to the dinner conversation in the evening as well. Trust me. And it's been really great because we've been very, very involved, as many parents have, and I'm learning new things and being inspired to read new literature. Thank you very much. And I think that everyone is being involved, and that's part of the success. And it's a learning curve too for our students, which have to now have much more control over their own time, their own schedules, but they've also have all that power and control over doing things the way that fits their particular learning styles
Sure.
and their strengths.
Yeah.
And I see that coming out in my sons, that they are learning their own strengths and some of their weaknesses as well, and how to overcome them.
Sure.
So that's been a valuable lesson as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I've seen develop kind of since we started. We started with like the 2-week sprint, right?
Right.
And now we're in the 10K that we're
Right.
running right now. Is the development of student agency. I keep hearing from parents as well.
Right.
Initially the parents felt like they required a lot of their own supervisory time to
Right.
keep the kids on track. But the kids are realizing, like, okay, I have these things I got to get done, and I have some flexibility and some control over how I do them, when I do them, and stuff like that. And I think that that's been a real benefit to our students and an encouragement for me to watch that develop.
Well, and if I could jump in, the students are doing a great job. They teach each other and help each other and inspire each other. My students are on Zoom homework lessons where each person from their own home is contributing, challenging the others, talking things back and forth in a very collaborative and very productive method that I think is really outstanding. And I look at that and I just know that, myself and I'm sure many adults can learn from this as well.
That's great learning going on there. It really is.
You bring up another interesting point, and actually your son as well as others commented on this in the class that we had the other day, and they said, it's about finding the right time to be able to do stuff during the day, and I actually find I have more time than I ever did before. And so I have to sort of marshal out where that time zone should be that best fits my particular needs. But what also came out in the conversation, which I thought was most interesting, is it's not a competitive situation, it's a collaborative situation. Right. And so we're all working together to try to understand the story we're reading or the calculus problem that we've been given, as opposed to I want to make sure I get my 95 on the test because that's an A and it's going to go on my college record and so forth and so on. So that sort of got washed away in this process.
How did that happen? Because that's a really good thing.
It is. And I mean, it's and we're talking about this with the assistant principals after the class today, and it's like you almost wish you could somehow, copy that. You grab it and then pass it around because you want kids to be in that zone of, like, everybody's got a box, right? So I'm going to put Jim in a box. In that box, he's got a latitude that goes this way and he's got a longitude that goes this way. My job as a teacher is to expand the horizons, stretch out the box as far as I can. So all Jim's concerned about is his box. He's not interested in your box. And that's what I, as a teacher, have to do, is to create that kind of zone, a proximal zone, where he's only interested in where he's at and how he can get to a higher point. And that's a really great thing if you can pull it off.
That's an incredible benefit to the system. I'm glad that you described that because I hadn't necessarily observed that.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a transformative thing, because it really allows individual students to kind of grab hold of, here's where I am, here's what I'm learning, and everybody else is contributing and helping that student expand their own boxes themselves.
Right. And the other thing I think that your kids have talked about, or the kids in Concord, I should say, is that someone raises a point. So commissioner raises a point. So instead of you just saying, oh, that's a good point, too bad I didn't think of that, you jump on it. They jump on the point and say, yeah, can I add to that? Because I would think it would be more of this and more of that. And then it goes around like this. And so whatever the commissioner started out with ends up in a different place somewhere down the road because everybody's chimed in and has moved the conversation. So again, it's not about me personally. It's about where the conversation is going for the class in terms of their understanding of that particular issue.
Do you think there's something about the dynamic of the way that instructional model is kind of playing out, that some of the peer pressure, the shyness or something like that kind of dissipates so that the kids feel more willing to kind of jump in?
That's a good point, too. First of all, they're in a comfortable location. They found their space in their home.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I've seen this, and you said, my kids, but all of, as a school board member, all of the Concord kids are my kids. So, and just as they are with you, and I'm sure the state for you.
They're all mine, right?
And but they find their comfortable place. They feel confident. They are gaining confidence with each and every week that I see. And I think that the commissioner brings out a great point that if we look, at the lives of our students as they progress and move on, this collaboration, this moving the collective box farther down the road and doing this is exactly the skills you use every day at work. It's what supervisors look for at work. It's whether, no matter what career you have, that collaboration is so critical to successful business as well as successful organizations that by giving our students a head start on learning how to master that and do that, We're doing a service here that might have been challenging, may have gotten done in a different manner at school, but gives our kids an opportunity to be really creative and to work collaboratively. I think that's outstanding.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great.
Do you get the sense that the students are more engaged in what they're actually learning than they are just in checking off the boxes, like here's the requirements for this class, as opposed to saying like, no, I really want to learn this. I want to dig in.
No question about it. There's this real zest for learning that I hadn't seen before. And it's exhilarating for a teacher because you got them all coming forward with these ideas, and it's like I think I said this to you privately on the phone. It's like you want to jump along for the ride. Can I hang on because they're going to the moon, and I don't know if I can get there with them. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's really interesting to see them just take off like that, and you have to, as a teacher, have to constantly have your attention out there to be able to move with them as they go into whatever orbit they tend to go in. Yeah. And I'm perhaps giving somewhat of an exaggeration, but I think it's important for folks to know that give kids the opportunity to excel, and they will. I mean, that's really the bottom line here.
Yes.
And I think one of the things you said, and I want to talk about it here too, is the teachers, and they've done a great job in being available and open, not only to the students, but to those of us who are parents as well.
Right.
Because as you said, many of us are hanging on,
yes,
and trying to keep up. I mean, it's been a few years since and we're now thrown into a major role, and the teachers have been right there always, at least here in the Concord School District, and I'm sure across the state because I've seen it, to help our parents, be a part of this program and be available either by phone or through Google Classroom and all the electronic means to help us out as well, and that's a key point.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys intended to do this, but you've raised the bar. So I don't know if you know this. I mean, across the country, New Hampshire is really leading in this effort. Like all of this work that is being done by our teachers, by our administrators, we're setting the pace. But with that last conversation about kids really focusing on the learning, I mean, we've just taken the bar and we just raised it again.
Sure.
So this is incredibly encouraging to me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And again, I think as we've all said, it's this collaborative spirit, this sense about wanting to help each other out and realizing that we're all in this together. And I think it's almost, I mean, I hate to use the analogy, but it's a wartime mentality, and you got an enemy out there, and you're trying to all band together to fight the enemy. And I think that's what a lot of us have been doing, and really reaching higher, to coin a phrase, to kind of see where's the ceiling here? How can we get to that ceiling? Now, do you think, Commissioner, that because of what we've been doing now with remote learning, that snow days will go away?
So I certainly think that snow days will go away. It was interesting. I was having a conversation with the superintendent, and I heard this yesterday. They like snow days.
They do.
Well, they like the idea of them just disrupting and just creating this opportunity for kids to kind of take a break or something. But I certainly think snow days are going to become optional. I think what you're going to see is it's going to infuse a lot of this flexibility into the system, just inherently into the system. Where students are going to be able to find ways that learn and engage differently. Teachers are going to say, like, I have a different way that I can get these lessons across that I think may be more effective. And so, like, everybody's just kind of stepped outside of their comfort zones and is embracing, wow, this can be a lot of fun to be creative and innovative.
Sure, that's great. I know we're kind of running out of time here, but a few final thoughts if we could. So, Commissioner, talk to us about the fact that you said there might be a runway in terms of the May 4th date and how the governor is going to let us get back into the swing of things. Can you give us more specificity on that?
Sure, and again, nothing has been decided, so I want to make sure that I'm clear. The governor makes these decisions, not me. I do know when we switched over to the April 3rd, that initial period, we said to the schools, like, we're going to give you up to a week to get ready to switch to remote learning. I think you only needed a couple of days here. Some other districts took the full week. But I think if the governor is going to ask you to pivot back, he's going to give you some runway to do that in terms of preparation time, getting yourself set back up and being prepared to do that.
Great. Jim, what do you see on the horizon as things start to come back to, quote, normal?
Well, I think our students will be happy. I think if I looked at it from a school board point of view, and I just want to thank the citizens of Concord for their support. We are going to go through this budget season. We're going to establish a budget, but for the remainder of the year, we're going to have to remain flexible. We're going to be adaptable, and we're going to make the changes and the moves necessary to move our school system and the education forward, as well as be responsive to our citizens. So
Yeah.
that's a challenge that we're going to face for not just the next 4 weeks, but the next 4 to 8 months.
Yeah.
But I'm very confident, and I'm feeling very good about that because I think we've established a great working relationship and a system that works really well. So I'm very excited about that.
No, that's great, and I want to end on that note of confidence. I mean, you're confident about it. I think all three of us have been kind of saying that this entrepreneurship, the spirit of collaboration has taken hold, and folks want to move to the next level. And I think we are confident that we'll get through this. Yep. We'll come back to some sort of new normal, if you will. But we feel energized by what we've been able to accomplish in this downturn. And when we come back to school, I think the schools will be better than where they were when we first started. And that's a great thing.
That is a great thing. That's really encouraging.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I want to thank our special guest for coming in. Commissioner, again, our hats off to you for all the work that you did on behalf of our schools. It is greatly appreciated. And I know I speak for Jim and the Concord community. We are most in your debt for what you've been able to provide for us.
And could not have done this without all of the tremendous work of the department, but really all of the educators and the leaders around the state.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you, Jim, for coming in.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our teachers and all the parents who have worked so well on this as well.
Great way to end the show. Thank you, and tune in for our next show, In Depth School and Community. Thank you.